Hi, Lawrence LeBrocq, managing partner of Garces, Grabler, and LeBrocq, and I'm here with Andrew Gapas. Andrew is now teacher and a wrestling coach up in North Hunterdon. Uh, I actually coached against North Hunterdon for years when I was involved with the Edison Rec, and they always had a great program up there. So, welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, since we started talking a little bit about wrestling, talk about wrestling and wrestling through high school, going through Division One wrestling. What effect did that have on your life, and how did that help you achieve and overcome in your life?
I feel like the biggest thing that the sport teaches you that it doesn't teach a lot of people is like the main idea of like discipline. I feel like that's the hardest part, and that's what a lot of people usually say about it. For me, it just built up a very good, like, strong foundation of routine and like understanding. Like, listen, you got to do what you got to do. There's no saying no. There's no backing out. You're either in it or you're out of it. And my coaches were definitely big on that. Like growing up, like my when I was in the youth program, Michael, he was always about like being tough and going through hard things. Like there was never like a choice of or an option to back down. Like there was never a chance to be like goofing off or being unfocused. Like it was very like if you're in my room, you're sticking by my rules, and we're gonna make you a champion in one day. That was his biggest thing. So I'd say like discipline is probably the no brainer in the grand scheme of things comparatively to other sports or other experiences in life.
And then you wrestled through high school, and you had a very successful high school career. Where'd you end up in college?
My freshman year, I went to a school out in PA. It was called Clarion University. I wasn't a huge fan of it, so it wasn't anything that anybody did. But it wasn't the right environment for me, and so I ended up deciding to come back home for Rutgers University, and then I wrestled there. Well, with COVID, we get an extra year. I wrestled there for I think 6 years, 6 years about, or it was 5 or 6 years with the extra eligibility year. But
Right.
yeah, I was there for a long time. Got my master's degree there and graduated with a master's in education. And I'm like currently a special ed teacher right now in high school, and I teach like all uh, English courses for like mainstream students. So I got a good gig going for myself right now.
So when you were wrestling at Rutgers, was Coach Goody the coach, Good Al?
Yeah, he was always a coach. By the time I left, it was Goodale, it was Coach Pritzloff, Coach Pollard, Coach Leonardis, and Coach Kiss at the time, and then it kind of jumbled around all over the place. Like most recently, Pritzloff left. He went up to Columbia.
Yep.
Kiss left and then came back. So I actually saw him recently. I saw him yesterday after the Rutgers match with Drexel. But yeah, there and then Pollard's been there still. Goody's still there. They added a new coach, Steve Middich. He's a PA coach. I know he's a coach out of PA. I'm not sure where he coached originally, but he was there like during my graduate year, and he's a real good guy. And they got a ton of new coaches, new kids. Like I barely recognize any of them. I recognize like maybe three of them from when I was in
Right.
college. But
So you're teaching up in North Hunterdon. Now you've overcome quite a challenge yourself. Other than, of course, how tough wrestling is and wrestling at a Division One level, you were throwing a very tough hand. Want to talk about that a little bit? What happened?
yeah, for sure. It's kind of a long story, but my it was mainly my biggest issues were because I was stubborn about not wanting to take care of issues that I had. But um, it all started last year. Like we're coming up on, yeah, we actually passed a year now. But like when you're a wrestler, you kind of injure stuff all the time. Like it's just a normal thing. Like you'll get like aches, and it's just like you don't really know why, but they'll usually figure themselves out. And like that happened to me. I was moving a mat and I hurt my shoulder. I felt a pop. And again, you never think much of this stuff. You're just kind of like going about your day. And no, I got it checked out. They said nothing was wrong, and it was probably just like popped out, popped back in. Like if it still hurts, like get it checked out again. We'll see how it goes. But as like time went on, this was in November of last year. As time like went on, it January came around. I'm still coaching. I'm still wrestling with the high school, and the pain just kept getting worse. And like I was constantly trying to like just take pain medication. Like I was like, this isn't right. Like I was like on like 6 to 8 Tylenol a day just so I could fall asleep. Like it was brutal. Like I was anyone would just like brush my shoulder, I would just like want to collapse in pain. Like it was bad. And so I finally got it rechecked out. And the first time I got it checked out, they took an X-ray and my bone was completely intact. By the time, and within a 2 month span, my bone went from completely intact to completely shattered and disfigured. Like it was a miracle my shoulder was even like functional and like mobile. And so what I found out after getting an MRI was that I had a tumor that was growing in my shoulder and it grew underneath the bone. And that's why I was in so much pain because it was right on the nerve. It broke and shattered a bone. Like my entire, it was, like I said, it was incredible that it was still able to move and be stable, as stable as it was, you know? And I come to find out like later on that like it was a tumor. It started off as a tumor. We thought it was either a bone tumor or like a, just a what's the word for it? Shoot, I forget. But it's basically like a non-cancerous tumor. Like
Right.
those were the two options, and it turned out to be not a bone tumor, luckily, but they it was a blood cancer that was growing in my shoulder, and the tumor happened to be cancerous, and it was a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it was a pretty scary moment to
Of
find that
course.
out.
So, how old were you when you found this out?
I was 24. I was 24 years old.
And what were the emotions? What went through you other than complete? It had to be fearful. Oh my God, how'd this happen? So, what were you feeling during that time?
Yeah, it my well, I found out at a wrestling tournament. So it was at the regions actually. It was at like I had a kid, and I was standing next to him, and I got a phone call from my doctor because and he was like, "This is urgent," because he was the one that knew my results for my biopsy, and so um, he called me, and I'm like with my kid. I take a step outside to the hallway, I answer the phone. He's like, he told me it was cancer and that I either had the choice of like fighting it with the possibility of dying, or I don't do anything with almost as like an almost 100% chance of dying. So it was one of those. Those were my two options, and hung up the phone and I walked back into the tournament. So in that moment, and I just hit my kid on the back. I'm like, all right, let's head out there. So in that moment, I didn't have too much time to think about it, which is pretty crazy. But the afterwards when I was with my dad, he was luckily he was there and like he we were able to drive home together. But the first thing that came out of my mouth was like, why me? Because like I was a kid growing up. When I was a kid, I was always healthy. I'd never really had too many issues. And like you don't think about this is gonna sound a little blunt, but you don't think about this stuff at my age. You don't. You don't necessarily think you're indestructible and you think you know what you're talking about, but you never truly know. And for me, like being healthy and being a D1 athlete and being all this, like it opens up your eyes of how fragile like the human body actually is. Anything just like at a drop of a hat, you don't even know it's there and it will just hit you. And then all of a sudden you can't function like a normal human and you can't approach life as a normal person. It changes everything. It changes your perspective, your approach on like how you have to be and how you have to act. And especially with cancer, like you essentially become someone else's like basically someone else's like vessel. You don't be you're not you anymore. You just have to listen and follow directions, which is pretty it's pretty rough. But you know, you just have to figure out how to get through it and not go crazy while you're doing it.
What kind of survival rate did they give you?
They had me actually pretty good shape. It was definitely better than their initial prediction, where if they thought it was bone cancer, and that's a completely different beast. Which I got lucky. I was one of the lucky ones, even though I had cancer. But when they first diagnosed it, when they looked at the MRI images, they thought it was bone cancer, which that would have had to be bone marrow transfusions, and that's like I've read so many like stories about like patients with bone cancer. We actually had a student here from North that he died of bone cancer very recently. His name was Joey Edwards, and he was suffering from bone cancer since his freshman year, and he passed away like I think 2 years ago, or it was freshman or sophomore year. He passed away like 2 years ago, which was like really devastating to hear about because you never wish that upon anybody, but at such a young age, it's hard to think about, you
Yes.
know. And then it happened to me, unfortunately, but luckily, like I said, luckily it was not bone cancer for me, but the survival rate, they were very confident about the survival rate, surprisingly. The biggest thing was that it was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. If it was Hodgkin's lymphoma, they would have been a lot less confident because the difference is that mine was spreading fast, but it was all flat. And because of that, it didn't have a strong foundation to like latch onto anything. When it's Hodgkin's, from my understanding, it forms into like a big ball. And when that ball occurs, it is like it's harder to chip away at it. It's almost like a chisel. And it's harder to chip away when it has a strong foundation, whereas mine was very flat going across my entire body. So in terms of spreading, that's why it's difficult to get rid of. But in terms of like actually killing it, that's why it was easier for me. And they were confident going into it. And so that made me confident too. So
Take me through the phases. First it's fear, then you go, why me? Where does it turn to say, all right, now I got to fight this shit? When does it click in?
it's almost right away. I mean, it's a lot of cycling of emotions. But the first thing I said, like I said, I was like, why me? Then an hour later, I'm like, I can't let myself die. I can't do it. I can't. I feared like the one thing I always feared was always death for some reason. And I don't know why I always feared it. But for me, I was like, I can't let myself die. It's like there's no way. I'm not letting it happen. Like, so I'm gonna do whatever it takes. And that's when you gotta figure it out. You know, you just gotta figure it out. And for me, it was like I said, it was almost right away. Some people may like sit on it for a bit, but for me, I was like, all right, when are we doing it? And then I finished out the season, but like I pretty much after the season, I hopped in the hospital for my first hospital visitation later that week. Like that was I was in right away, like a week after the season, because luckily it was close enough. But like I was almost immediately like I'm taking care of my business and I'm getting this done right away. Because if I waited, then that's when it gets a little bit jammy. You can't wait.
All
You just
right,
have to do it.
take us through the treatments and the mental battle there, as well as the physical.
Yeah, the biggest thing with this, so I had a weird treatment schedule. Not like Wesley weird, but it's the most intense version that the hospital could provide me for what I had. But basically, you'd go on and off with like a lot of chemotherapy treatment. I luckily didn't have to do radiation, but like it would go alternate weeks. So you go in for one week, a week of or 5 days straight of you being in the hospital and getting different types of chemotherapy. Then you would take a couple of days off. Then you would get another round of like a different medication of chemotherapy, which was even more intense and more hard on the body. And in between those, I would have to get chemotherapy like shot into my spinal column. And it would have to like they would do it for my nerves of like so they could spread it like that. And it was like a rotating cycle of like that. And I only had to do 2 rounds of that, but basically, if you counted it, it was like 4 cycles of chemo mixed with like another 4 shots of like some sort of medicine going up my body. um, and then and that was it's the most intense one, but it was also the fastest one. So I that's why I like because I was young and because I could keep up with the medication, I got it done within only 2 months or 3 months. So because I took care of it right away, I was very lucky. I was very lucky with the position I was in, even though it was a scary time, you know. And in between then too, like I would still have to do at home like shots. I would still have to visit the hospital to do tests, and like they would sometimes do blood transfusions. Like it was kind of all over the place, but that's all like the management stuff. Like that's like not even the treatment, you know,
Right.
like which is like that's a whole nother aspect and a whole different animal too. But
How was how was the mental battle?
Yeah, the mental battle, it's brutal. I can't sugarcoat it because you essentially, especially for me, like, not that like I ever thought like super highly of myself and physical capabilities, but like I was a D1 wrestler. I was the guy like you would ask you. I was the friend that you would call and help move a couch because
Right.
no one else is strong enough to do it in their family. You know, like, and then you go from that to being essentially just like a potato. Like you can't do anything. You can't like you are sitting there, and if you try to do something, you're out of breath after taking two steps. You need everybody to do everything for you. You're strapped. I was me personally. I was strapped to an IV machine, like which I've never been done before, or never had to deal with before. But I was strapped to an IV machine. I would get like throat ulcers and like fevers, which would just like like kick you while you're already down. Like you're having side effects to the medication where it's just not nothing is going right, and like it's hard to bounce back when you're constantly being kicked down. But the biggest thing that brings you back, as much as it is yourself, it's also the people around you. The support I had was fantastic. It was, I couldn't ask for a better community. I couldn't ask for a better family during this time. They were constantly by my corner. They made sure to never let me be alone. And there was one thing I learned, like trauma only occurs whenever you're alone, whenever no one's there to help you or to help guide you. And for me, it's as traumatic as an experience as it could, like as it was, it wasn't as traumatic as it could have been. And that's the thought I sort of hold on to. And that's why it's easier to process a little bit because if I was alone or if I was older, if I wasn't the person that I was and people forgot about me or like they put me aside or like, oh, he can take care of himself, that would have been a lot more difficult mentally, I think. I think it would have been a lot more difficult as a human.
So your family, how did they react? They gave you a lot of support.
Absolutely. They were, it's just as difficult on them, you know? I mean, you never want to see your own flesh and blood. Uh, you never want to see your own flesh and blood like in that kind of state. And even for my mom, like she got into a car accident like even the year before. So like on top of her car accident, and her being hospitalized for a little while, next thing yeah, you know, I get cancer, and then they have to deal with that, and like it was a rough year for us in terms of health, but the only reason why we were able to get through it is because we all stuck together. You know, that was the biggest thing is if we didn't stick together, then it would have been a lot more difficult for everybody. But we made sure that we were always there for each other. I had an aunt who lived in Delaware. And I was getting treated in Hackensack. She would drive 4 hours just to come make sure that I had someone in my room while other people worked. I mean, granted, she's retired. She has the time to do it, but she never had to do that, you know? And it's not, and that's extended family. That's not even like, even though it's direct family, it's not like my mom and dad,
Sure.
you know? So
So
they were very helpful, and that and obviously like I said, this the support of my community around me, like the school and North Hunterdon community, like North Hunterdon wrestling community, like everyone was fantastic. So
well, you had some great news, and I understand you're now 6 months cancer free.
yeah, I'm close to it at least. I'm like a few days off. I'm like I'll be cancer free or 6 months cancer free officially December 30th. That is like the official day. I had to I messed up the math a little bit, but we're close to it.
That'll be a hell of a new year present then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so tell me, how did this disease and fight now, how does that make you stronger, and how do you now give back to the people around you?
It definitely it makes me. It's hard to say how it makes me stronger. I will say that I haven't given too much thought to it. It definitely changes my perspective on like how I should be approaching life and everything like that. Where I need to be more grounded, more here with everybody, and be connected with everybody. But um, other than that, it's like difficult to say because like I want to say that I grew from it, but it's also like it's hard to say that you grow from it, you know? Like it was something that I was afraid of, and I haven't even fully like processed it. It still happened earlier this year, so it's difficult to like. Once I feel like I've gotten a little bit more time into it, I feel like I'll figure out the answers to that question. But as of right now, I still got a lot of growing to do an adult, as a young adult, and as a person, and truly understanding the impact of what this had on me. But as of right now, things have been going great, and even though I have a different perspective, I've been like I feel like I've been more supportive towards of understanding where people are coming from and being more direct and trying to approach people that look like they need help and they look like they are struggling, whether it's in wrestling or it's in the classroom. I feel like I've been more actively trying to pay attention to how people are doing, because you never know what they're going through at home. Like, and that's the hardest thing. Like, you see a kid that's sitting there quietly in class, you ignore it, or like people just don't think twice about it. But I'm more of the type of person to just like be more direct and be like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, I know you acted different, and you could be blowing me off, but I want to figure you out. I want to understand you and how you're doing. You know, I feel like that's the biggest change.
Well, it's a great change to try to figure out what really makes people tick and trying to help them. How do you think it's going to affect you as a coach, other than being more direct and other than trying to really understand the kid you're coaching? How do you think it's going to affect you as a coach?
I mean, I feel like it already has. I I feel like I'm definitely more passionate and more trying to like I'm, even though I'm not always positive, I try to be. I'm trying to be more positive. I'm being more actively thoughtful of how I approach what I say and the things and the way I say it. Where you can't be so like hard on them all the time, and understanding that they're individual humans themselves. They're not me. You know, you have to separate yourself from them sometimes, and even though you're living vicariously through them, their own decisions they make are going to be different, and that's okay. And understanding that like they're gonna make their own mistakes, they're gonna make their own decisions, and beside that, you still have to give them the same love that you would anybody, because that's your kid. That's the kid that is going to win you that tournament. That's the kid that's going to win a place at states, win you the state group championship as a team. You know, and it's definitely brought. I guess gave me a more positive or sympathetic mindset towards them. And like you said, trying to poke and prod and understand them as more individual humans rather than just like anybody that I could just pick up from the street. You know. I feel like
And
that's the way I would answer that.
just going through the battle actually for your life, of your life, what advice can you give to somebody who's facing adversity, whether it's cancer, another disease? What advice would you give them from what you've learned through battling it yourself?
Find and understand who your people really are. That that's the biggest thing that helped me. Like like having people and having support and not being alone. Always finding someone to be there with you. That's the biggest thing. Because the more you are, and let people help you. If you're stubborn like me and you're constantly like yelling at people for them doing things, or you're getting upset at people for doing things for you, you just gotta let it go. Because like you're right now, you can't worry about like ordering your food all the time, or like trying to get up and go for a walk. Like you're gonna have to eventually rely on other people, and the faster you rely on other people to help you out and the better support system you have, the easier things get for you, because you have to rely on people in those moments. You can't do it all on your own. If you could do it all on your own, a lot more people would probably be better off in life, if that makes sense.
Has the experience of overcoming cancer, defeating cancer, has it changed your perspective on your future, your goals? Did it change the timeline you've set for yourself?
Absolutely. I feel like in terms of goals, they haven't really changed. I think stayed the same. In terms of like goals, at least in terms of the sport. In terms of life goals, like I'm trying to buy a house already. I'm
So,
really trying to settle in and trying to like, and I'm not even I'm an adult, but like I'm still trying to get my life started, and that I think definitely had an effect on wanting to pull the trigger on that faster. Um, there was maybe not a goal, but I will say though, it definitely I still think about like because the thing is it's still not done. The sad part of it with especially with cancer is that even though it's gone, there's still a chance it comes back, and that still weighs on me sometimes a little bit, which makes me want to, I think, do things faster though. And I think I want to be more productive and be more efficient to trying to achieve what I want to achieve in this life. That is the biggest thing that's changed. But yeah, in terms of I'm definitely progressing a lot faster in life than I thought I would be, but I don't think too much has changed. I don't know if that's for the best or for the worst, but at least it hasn't affected me negatively. If that's I guess the end of the story. But
are there any, I know you're coaching now at the high school level. Are there any aspirations to go on past high school in the future and maybe coach at the collegiate level?
um, not right now. That would be a very cool deal. Right now I need to I need to get my bearings first. I can't. I'm not in any rush to move up to that next level, but that would be like if it ever drops at my feet, that would be a great opportunity, and I would be excited to take it. If that ever were to happen, but it would be tough leaving my kids. That's the only thing. So that would have to be a decision on a later day. But yeah, I haven't given it too much thought, but I would definitely strongly consider changing that lifestyle, I guess.
You've told us about a lot of changes in perspective. Has it changed you any as a teacher with the special ed kids?
Um, I honestly I feel like I talk to him more like I said before, I feel like it's more direct conversation. Definitely, I feel like I'm a lot more blunt and a lot more honest and true to like how I want to like how I am as a person. Because I never really used to show that side of it. You can't like you always have to put on a certain face and persona of everything. But I feel like I've grown closer because I have been more honest and I have been more of myself and my own personality. And I feel like people usually appreciate that. And then it's definitely more meaningful relationships develop from that way, and it's not always just like you're not being true to yourself or you're true to your own thoughts, if that makes sense. But
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for being on the show. Congratulations on overcoming such a horrific circumstance and disease. I wish you well into the future. Keep fighting and best of luck teaching and coaching up in North Hundred. And I'm sure you're going to be a great teacher and coach throughout your career.
thank you. I really appreciate everything, and thank you for having me and let me tell my story a
My,
little bit. So
it's our
it's
pleasure.
awesome.
Our pleasure. Thanks again.